Just looking over some of the transcripts from Sandusky's lawyer, Joe Amendola. He described Jerry Sandusky, his client, as a big, overgrown kid and a jock. And usually after you work out, you shower. And that's what happened here. And when people hear he showered with kids, it makes him sound guilty. But the bottom line is jocks do that. Jocks do that. Yeah, jocks generally shower with kids. Happens all the time. It's just a standard procedure. This guy is lost, and you wonder why lawyers just get grilled all the time. And calling him a big, overgrown kid, isn't that what everyone said about Michael Jackson? Pretty much exactly what they said about Michael Jackson. Leave him alone. He's just a big, overgrown kid that sleeps with kids, that has kids over all the time. Leave him alone. Okay. Let's see if it's your kids. Joined now by our TSN 1050 legal analyst, Eric Makramala. Eric, what was your response when you heard that Sandusky's lawyer actually allowed him to chat with Bob Costas last night?
Well, I was doing my radio show and doing the full hour on that. So I received word that they were going to do that. So I was surprised and I was skeptical. I wasn't thinking it was a good idea off the bat. Then I was done the show. I had a chance to actually listen to what Sandusky said, and it was an absolute disaster. I understand what perhaps in theory they were trying to accomplish. Public opinion is squarely in the corner of the victims, and as it should be. Again, although I'll say it again, these are alleged, these are allegations, but squarely public opinion is against Sandusky. So they're thinking, look, for a jury trial, we should try and get as impartial a jury as we can. So let's try and swing momentum back towards Sandusky. The problem is, in a case like this, on its face, that's difficult to do. On top of that, Sandusky came across as someone that has indeed engaged in these activities. He admitted to showering with boys. That by itself, that's not going to cut it. And then when Bob Costas asked him, are you attracted to boys? He didn't come out outright and say no. He just kind of hesitated for a while. It was an uncomfortable pause, I think, for everybody, including Bob Costas. And then he went on to say he enjoys their company. So when you mentioned Michael Jackson at the top, Ryan, I had that same discussion with someone this morning. It had the same feel. Someone who's a little bit delusional, maybe who doesn't believe he's done anything wrong. But from a legal standpoint, as a lawyer, man, that was a bad move.
Delusional is the best way to put it. He is delusional. And that's what makes it so scary, is that this guy, I truly believe that he has no idea what he's done. He doesn't grasp that he's done anything wrong. And again, they are allegations. And let's say for a second, okay, that he's innocent of rape and molestation. The fact that he's showering with these kids is guilty enough for me. I mean, that's completely unacceptable. A grown man showering with boys and hugging them and touching their legs. I mean, it was creepy to listen to last night.
I mean, let's go back to one of the first incidents that was reported. And this isn't a grand jury transcript. It's victim 6. That was 1988. All right. The child was 8 years old. Sandusky is over 220 or 240 pounds, over, 6'2", 6'4". That is an uneven relationship. The child is obviously vulnerable. He set up the Second Mile Foundation. It appears just to identify his victims. I mean, the Second Mile Foundation was set up in 1977. And as we look back now in retrospect, you have to wonder why he set it up. And, this transcript only reports 8 incidents. And I am telling you now, and I'm sure you agree, there are going to be a lot more victims that come out of the woodwork here, because these 8 victims simply cannot be it if this foundation was in place since 1977. And you would have to assume on top of that, Brian, that there were victims before 1977. From top to bottom, for Sandusky, this really appears to be a loser.
Yeah, this book is in the early chapters. There are going to be many more written, and there's going to be so many more details coming out and more victims coming out of the woodworks. I'm with you there. And we were talking a moment ago about how delusional this guy is, and as a result, he's dangerous. And I'd like to ask you, Eric, can you explain to me, and I'm not sure you're going to be able to, but could you try to explain to me why this guy is out on bail right now?
I've been asked that question so many times, and I always respond with a question, I'm not sure, based upon the facts, because, look, there was an investigation in 1998, and that was 4 years before the 2002 incident that triggered all of this, right? The 2002 incident is the one where he was seen by McQueary in the showers having intercourse with a 10-year-old boy and told Paterno, Schultz, and Curley and Spanier and the whole thing. In 1998, there was a police investigation about him having a shower with an 8-year-old boy. And what is interesting and extremely troubling here, Brian, is that charges were not pressed despite Sandusky admitting he showered with the young boy, again, 8 years old. That's grade 2. And what did the police say? They said, look, we're not going to press charges, but you're no longer permitted to shower with children. Wow, running a really tight ship there, huh?
Unbelievable.
It doesn't make any sense. And then after 1998, you had, at least in this transcript, a number of other transgressions, one in 2000, one in 2002, one in 2005, and we know that this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, and the authorities, they're going to have to explain themselves. And I've been reading a lot of the details coming out of State College and coming out of the police reports, and the incompetence that was in play here from the police is absolutely inexcusable as well. And, you know, Paterno deserves every ounce of negativity that has been directed his way. McQueary as well, the president, the AD, everybody, but so do the police, because they just simply let this go for way too long, as far as I'm concerned, and they could have done more, and they were privy to details. They just didn't have enough manpower on it. And then finally, whoever came in and decided, okay, we got to do something about this, they clearly got it done now, but it should have been done 10 years ago.
You know, I just posted on the blog a more in-depth review of the grand jury transcript. The reason that I did that and took the time to do it is because what becomes entirely clear is this pervasive, systemic, institutional failure, number one, to remove Sandusky from society, and number two, to cover this up. The police did a terrible job on this. Paterno was ambiguous and provided a mild version of what McQueary told him. Curley and Schultz have been indicted on perjury charges because they said that they were told nothing of a sexual nature ever happened. The president, Spanier, the president of Penn State, said, oh, you know, I wasn't aware of anything sexual happening. This spans across not only the university but against law enforcement. It has tentacles reaching really far, and this case is only beginning, and we are going to become acquainted, I suspect, not only with more victims, because that's a given, but more people who knew or should have known or should have done something. Because I will say this, it's clear in the transcript that Curley and Schultz say that they not only told Sandusky that, look, since we caught you in the shower, we're no longer providing you with access to that shower. And that was it, by the way. But they also said they advised Second Mile. And Second Mile is comprised of, or the board of directors is comprised of people that are pretty influential in the business community. So should they have known? Ought they have known? Were there whispers? Were there stories? Why weren't proactive steps from a legal standpoint taken to remove Sandusky from society? And if that is in fact the case, you have the possibility here, Brian, for a massive negligence claim. And that is a civil case where you sue for money. And the bottom line there is, if it is found that certain people, from Paterno, Schultz, Spanier, to Second Mile, to the president of Penn State, did not take steps to adequately protect children after that 2002 incident, or even before that, back to 1998, or even back to 1994, they're all open to liability. It is going to be a mammoth case as far as a civil claim goes, although I suspect the university will do the best it can to get it settled.
Chatting with Eric Makramala, our TSN 1050 legal analyst. Let me ask you about Mike McQueary and his testimony, where he said, all right, he told the authorities that he saw what happened. He saw Sandusky doing what he was doing to that, I believe, a 10-year-old boy back in 2002. And then he went and told his father. And then the next day he went and told Joe Paterno. And then it slowly went up the chain, but nothing ended up happening in the end. Now McQueary is coming out and saying that that's not actually what happened. He made sure that Sandusky stopped doing what he was doing. He was raping the 10-year-old. So now his testimony has changed a little bit. With that being the case, does that compromise him as a witness once this trial finally begins?
It doesn't compromise him, and it's a good question. Here's the thing. What I just reviewed and what was available is a summary of the grand jury testimony. But what was not provided, Brian, was the individual testimony. So it's just a summary. We don't know what McCreary actually said in his grand jury testimony. So in fact, he may have said more. So we're just looking at a summary. Bottom line, he's the only person that saw Sandusky in that shower. So he is a key witness in this case, and will be relied upon heavily, at least as far as this 2002 incident goes. Chatting
with Eric Makramala, our TSN 1050 legal analyst. Before I get you out of here, Eric, let's switch gears here, chat about the NBA quickly. The union is going to decertify. It will be taken to the courts. The players are going to go that route, much like the NFL did last summer. How long do you expect this to take place? How long will it be drawn out? And from a legal standpoint, can they get it done in time? Will they get it done in time to actually play any games this season?
What has happened here is the union has disclaimed interest. We've heard decertification and disclaimed interest. They're both a little bit different, but ultimately the net result is the same. Disclaiming interest is when the union walks away from the players. They just say, we have no more interest, very much like my personal life, all the girlfriends I've had. They just walk away. Decertification is when the players walk away from the union. But again, the net effect is the same. The net effect is no more union. Union's blown up. Players now represent themselves, and they can now sue the NBA for these competition law or antitrust violations. One big difference with disclaiming interest as opposed to decertification is that you don't need to really vote on it. You can do it instantaneously. And that's why they went that route, because decertification can take 45 to 60 days. As far as the next steps here, my impression is the NBA players have disclaimed interest with a view to trying to gain some kind of leverage, because really the staying power is with the owners. Leverage has squarely been on the owner's side, and the NBA players are saying, look, we want a better offer. We're going to disclaim interest. This may not go to litigation. I could see them filing lawsuits, but ultimately there are obvious areas of compromise here. The sides are not that far apart when it comes to percentage points with respect to revenue share. You're 1.5% to 2% apart. That, from a legal standpoint, is an area of compromise. So my expectation, Brian, is we will have basketball by Christmas. But if this blows up and the players are intent on pursuing their litigation, this could go on for years. Remember, in the NFL, the decision the court rendered was just kind of an interim decision. But had this gone to trial, it would have been a 3 to 5 year timeline. So this goes on indefinitely. That's why Commissioner Stern came out and said, look, if they want to pursue litigation, you might as well sell your homes, because this is going to take years.
Good stuff, Eric. As always, really appreciate you taking time.
Pleasure.
That's Eric Makramala, our TSN 1050 legal analyst.